let's go ahead and get started here. So how's it going, everyone? Thank you for joining Data4Dev Global. I'm your host, Rod Alipour, and I help lead go-to-market at Firebolt. I've been in the data space for the better part of a decade, but compared to today's speakers, I'm just a novice with beautiful hair. Today, we're going to talk about cloud data warehousing, and we have a stacked agenda. First, we'll start with a panel where we've invited 4 data experts to talk about their cloud data warehouses and how they stack up against one another. Afterwards, we'll invite Moshe, CTO for Firebolt, to speak. Moshe is one of the inventors of the MDX language, and more recently, he was the principal engineer at BigQuery. And Moshe is here to talk about what he's building at Firebolt and some of the use cases it's meant to solve for. Lastly, we'll split into breakout rooms to dive deeper into the topics you chose before today's event. Cool. So let's go ahead and get started. Starting with the panel. So with the current economic climate, data teams are operating under the mandate of do more with less. Now more than ever, there's a heavy focus on efficiency and maximizing ROI on data initiatives. As a result, data teams need to find a tricky balance between cost, performance, and scale. The 4 panelists before you are here to talk about their cloud data warehousing experiences with you so that you, the viewer, can understand how their CDWs compare. So to start, let's go around the panel. I'd love for each of you to please introduce yourself and to share which platform you work with today. I can kick it off. Krishna, how about you go first?
Cool, thanks. Great to be here. Nice to meet you all. So I'm Krishna Naidu. I'm from Canva, and we use Snowflake. Over to you, Keren.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erik. I'm head of analytics platform at Bolt, which is Europe's and Africa's leading mobility and delivery platform, not to be confused by the America's Bolt, the fintech. And yeah, our data stack is, it was lately Redshift. Now it's Delta Lake and S3 Spark through Databricks and Presto for query engines. And we operate in like petabyte scale.
Cool. Keren, how about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. Keren from PayU, working as a VP of data for the 5 months. Basically, it's a fintech company. We're dealing with cross-border payment, dealing with a lot of obstacles of data and data lake. Our data lake is the Snowflake. I would love to elaborate in the upcoming minutes about it.
Awesome. Thank you. And last but not least, the data pro, Ryan.
All right. My name is Ryan McWilliams. I'm from Vrio/Sublitics. We house we do analytics at scale, and currently we're using Firebolt. So I guess I am the Firebolt guy here.
All right. Thanks for joining, everyone. So the first question is going to be for all of you, just to sort of set the stage. What are some of the biggest data warehousing challenges you're dealing with these days?
So maybe I will start because we have like a massive obstacle. We're working as a global company, so we need to pipe data from several platforms. Each one has their own data structure, things that they built, and we need basically to be aligned with global KPIs. So we have the KPI that we want to calculate, and we want to do that globally, but each one of the platform did that internally in their place, whenever it's Africa, Poland, Romania, Latin America. So we need to build some kind of bridge. So what we did, basically, we built like a global data modeling where we actually did all the mapping and all the automation related to the pipelines that we put in place. And then we have global data modeling for our data consumers. So it's a lot of mapping, a lot of automation that we needed to do, a lot of airflow and things that we needed to put in place. But now we have like global data modeling, where we can actually provide our customers internally and externally with data KPIs, and we can have also the lineage of that because we use dbt in order to do so, to schedule all of our jobs. And up until now, we see that working. People are enjoying from having like one source of truth, I would say, as a global data. If they want, they can see that internally. So they have both words to enjoy from.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next, if that's okay. Yeah, so I think at Canva, I think the challenge for us is our rapid growth rate. Like for the first 2 years I was at Canva, our team grew from about 10, and when I say our team, I mean the people contributing to the warehouse, including data analysts, ML folks, and data engineers. Yeah, from 10 to about 250. So our biggest challenge is actually education, mentoring, and promoting best practices in this large team that we have. Scale has not been an issue for us in terms of handling, petabytes of data, but it's more organizational, finding ownership, encouraging good practices, ensuring resilience in the pipeline, resilience in data replication. Those are some of our challenges.
Cool. Erik, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. From our side, we used to have a lot of issues with scale. Luckily, the new setup currently has solved majority of those. So now our focus is on like how to not block the company and the growth and everything that people want to do on top of our data. So we put a lot of efforts into platformization of our offering, a lot of data mesh like approach, where we just build everything for data producers and consumers to do everything on their own. So we will not be a bottleneck. And yeah, I think data governance in general is something that we also need to think about quite heavily. If I would go maybe half a year ahead from now, then probably we would understand if LLMs are a big place. It is a big place for us also to use on our data platform. Let's see with this.
Cool. Ryan, how about yourself?
Yeah, so our application started as analytics only, and we had, similar to some of the other ones, we pulled data from a lot of different places to provide analytics from lots of different systems, and we tie them together, all the way from shipments, tracking numbers, things like that. And then we moved into the e-commerce space, where we're a PCI level 1 compliant application, where challenges for us came within that, with being PCI compliant and making sure that, not really a multi-tenant situation, but we had people that use us for analytics, and then they moved into us to do their billing. And then it came with speed and costs, really. So, as the data became more complex, the queries became more complex, the speed went down. You got to spend more for, at AWS. And so that was by far the biggest challenge that we had, was making sure that our advanced reporting could keep up with the amount of data that we had coming into the system.
Awesome. So I'm going to start asking some questions specifically of each of you. Erik, maybe starting with you. So, I've been working with a lot of customers, and I'm seeing a lot of changes in priorities and focus in 2023 as a result of some of the global macroeconomic trends. How is the current economic climate impacting Bolt's data focus and data initiatives for 2023?
Yeah, of course, it's affecting our decision making. But I would say we have treated cost of our data platform and our offering as one of our main KPIs throughout the for like 5+ years already. So for us, it's not something that we dramatically need to change now. We have done through some great exercises with COVID where we lost 80% of our revenue in like a month. So we dropped our data warehouse spending for 50% without any loss of data or use cases. But for now, I would say the focus shifts more from scaling to the quality side. So our focus is on that space. So whatever data we provide, that it's like highly valuable for the customers. But I would say from the like analytics platform side or data platform side, we're in a good shape because we attribute the cost back to our consumers and producers. So if they are willing to spend in this economy, then we are okay to spin up more machines for them.
Awesome. Ryan, for yourself, you're using Firebolt. How are you sort of finding that balance between cost and performance?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the biggest, issues we have with, handling people that use us for their processing is the speed of, the real timeness of the data, right? So what's been really good with Firebolt is we can get real-time data into Firebolt at a lower cost. So we're able to split things up evenly. We're able to scale up, scale down very easily at off-peak times, all while still keeping, our customers happy to know that, their data may be only delayed 15 minutes or something along those lines. So now on our side, when it comes to the cost, we've been able to save a ton because RDS is not cheap and it's also, not very performant, so we realized we had to move into more of a data warehouse situation. So we're able to, on the cost wise, we've been almost even, if not a little bit less now when it comes to moving away from pulling everything and moving to the data lake and Firebolt as opposed to what we were paying before. So it was a pretty nice transition for us and it didn't cost us any more. Plus it gave us the results that we needed for all of our clients. So that cost for us, that cost, is baked into what they pay us. They don't, similar to Erik. I mean, if they wanted to pay more, we could easily do that with Firebolt or, and spin up their own kind of instances and keep them separate from everybody else. So.
Cool. Keren, this one's for you. You sort of mentioned moving to like sort of a golden KPI standard and global data modeling, so everyone's working off the same data. In your experience with Snowflake, how did it do in terms of scalability to help meet that need?
Yeah, so we use Snowflake. So we use the auto scale of Snowflake. It's automatically scale. We also use some internal tools that we built in order to speed up these processes. Of course, we wrap it with Kafka and event collectors. Basically, we use all of Snowflake tools that we can in order to do so. We can also do the other way around, right? We can also decrease the scale. So we use Snowflake internally in order to do that. Bear in mind that we also storing today some aggregation in order to be compliant. We cannot do some data retention. So we cannot save the data as a raw data. So we are saving only aggregation. If that's more than 2 years, that's also helping us to pull the data efficiently. So we are not really using the schemas in order to do that in a raw data. This is like more or less our mitigation here. We found it efficient.
Yeah. And then for, you mentioned some automation, you mentioned you're working with that good data. how is that working? Is that working well for your needs? Does it require some operational overhead that you have to work through? Like what's been your experience with automation there?
Automation in which terms? To scale.
I guess moving on from the scaling, more probably along the lines of like you have all this data, you need to aggregate that data, you probably have pipelines you need to manage. Just trying to get a sense of what that looks like on the day-to-day. Is that something that's pretty easy to set up and you sort of leave it be, or does that require, a bit of hand-holding to make sure that data's piping, data's accurate, and it's getting in the hands of the people who need it?
Yeah. So look, in terms of data mesh, we basically implemented the principle of giving back the control to the owners. So each one of the platforms, just like I mentioned before, because we're working as a global company, is capable to create table in the Snowflake and use that. And that's automatically created by creating the job on the DBT. And that's everything is automatically created, the Airflow pipeline. And we only need to review that and to approve that and to merge it to the critical branch. So yeah, in terms of that, we can bring back the ownership to the owner. So we are not working as a bottleneck today. In terms of the scale, so as I said before, like we can do scaling. We use Snowflake as a scalable system. We just lately did some health check with them in order to prune like unnecessary processes that ran in the background in order to do that more efficiency in terms of cost. So more or less we are there. We're still working to on the efficiency part to unify processes and to prune some branches and Airflow that there are not necessarily needs for now.
Cool. Krishna, next question is for you. So you're also leveraging Snowflake. One of the recurring themes here is trying to maintain costs and making sure that you have control over compute resources and costs. What's been your experience with Snowflake in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, there's a great level of control that we have in terms of, I tend not to look at it in terms of just scaling up and scaling down. We tend to have as many warehouses as they're called as we need. So for each use case even. So we tend to optimize the warehouse exactly to the workload that is needed. So by doing that, we're effectively just using exactly what's needed for the query. Now, if that workload needs to be scaled out, we would just create more instances of the same size warehouse. The other thing that we do, which is neat, is we use this service that they provide called the Query Acceleration Service, where we don't actually increase the size of the warehouse, but while the query is running, if Snowflake detects that extra juice can help, say, the scan operation or the filter operation, it gives it some extra juice. We do have to set some parameters in the warehouse to set upper bounds to how much it can spend. So we tinker around with that. And we write a lot of, so we also use DBT in our stack. So we save a lot of metadata with our models. And we review that metadata as it comes through after the queries have run to improve the selection of the warehouse. So there's some tweaking that we do we might start with a bigger warehouse for the workload, find out that it needs a smaller one, tweak it down. And sometimes it actually makes sense to run a bigger warehouse in case there's a lot of spillage to remote storage and things like that. That actually slows things down. So yeah, that's what we do. So these skills are centralized, but what we're trying to do is to promote these practices to the wider team. And that's what is making a difference for us in terms of optimizing for cost and bringing costs down.
Totally. Yeah. And oftentimes you focus on the technology, but the technology is only as good as the people and processes in place to support it.
Absolutely.
Erik, you mentioned you've sort of been moving from Redshift to Presto. What's been sort of driving that change?
I was lucky to be on Firebolt podcast last year, where I explained quite a bit of why we're doing the migration. We were mostly bottlenecked by some of the hard limits by getting to like Europe's or world's largest Redshift clusters. And secondly, concurrency was something that was a bit of an issue for us. But I would say we were always like thinking about splitting like compute and storage. And this is something that we really wanted to do. And majority of our problems are now solved through that.
Cool. And then you sort of mentioned, cost optimization has always been sort of a core KPI with your data warehousing practices. How important is performance for your internal stakeholders? Or is that something you're able to achieve pretty easily with your current setup?
As I said, like I would say by default we are in okay-ish situation. Of course, it's a massive change regardless of what analysts need to write and how they need to think about the queries themselves. Is like Redshift can handle everything, but if you move away from this one big black box to separating compute and storage, then you need to refigure or think about your queries a bit differently. So we spent a bit of time on like optimization. I would say we're now at, I think, roughly like 50% better performance than we used to have already. It's like 3 months since the migration. So I would say by default, we're quite good. But what's even better is that if they're, as I said before, if they're willing to take on more cost from their side, we're like absolutely okay to increase whatever they need, either memory usage or like CPU, all of those kinds of things.
Awesome. Keren, this one's for you. We've talked a little bit here just now about query optimization. With your experience for Snowflake, how does it do in terms of helping you with query optimization for some of your more complicated use cases?
Yeah, so we don't have a tool right now, even though we review some tools to do some optimization to the query. We more use guidance in order to do that, to guide the people once they're getting like the user to the Snowflake, not to do like select star without time limitation and so on, to do the projection as we want to understand, first of all, what they're asking, if there's something that we can do in the certificate report that we put, or that's something that they need to do on their routine basis. So guidance, I would say. Still, I saw some really nice tool that can do some, to correct the end user, whatever he's doing, like cross join or like things that are like more inefficient in a way that are wasting some credits on top of the Snowflake. But I would say guidance, academic learning, understanding. That's my BI team. This is what they're doing. This is one of the team that I'm leading, and we are writing Confluence pages in order to do some best practices and not to pull like all of the data. First of all, to isolate and to understand exactly what you want to measure, why you want to measure that, and who's going to use that. So those are the questions that we're asking before we are accessing the Snowflake.
Awesome. And then a final question to you, Ryan, same one as to Keren. For your perspective, what are some of the query optimization capabilities that Firebolt helps you with or provides to you?
Well, yeah, with our application, our biggest challenges for our customers are essentially lifetime value. ad spend, just pretty much from the beginning to the end of a customer's life cycle, so we aggregate that stuff over the course of years and months and let them break it up and slice it up however they want, like with pivot style tables. So optimization for us is key, and speed is key for us, so when it comes to optimization, luckily for us, it was a smooth transition over to Firebolt, where a lot of our queries are pretty much the same. We just got a huge increase in performance once we moved over to it. So yes, we're constantly fine tuning. We're constantly pulling in more data from different sources. It's just like there's the centralized customer, and we pull data from everywhere that we can. So when it comes to optimization, there's a lot of tools that we use internally, a lot of tools on Firebolt that we're able to kind of see the path, see how things are going, and see how to optimize. And, and then we also get, support over at Firebolt. It's been great for us. So we get a lot of help from them. And if we run into challenges, it's always been good to reach out. So, but yeah, speed and optimization. Speed is key. Our clients are used to getting real-time data as fast as they possibly can and don't have to wait for it. And so, that's what we're able to provide them now.
Cool. One final question for each of you. I'll keep it broad, but what's one big data trend you anticipate for 2023? Give you a second to ponder that.
I can go first here.
There you go.
Yeah. I think like woke answer here would be LLMs, of course, but I would go with something much easier. I think in a broader sense, it's data governance, something that has been hovering around for many years already, that it's crucial. Everyone thinks it's like it needs more focus. And I think we need a bit of innovation here. I don't know if LLMs here would come also into play or not, but in general, with all of the growth of the data, all the different elements that we're now using with different tooling for data modeling, storage layer, compute, how we want to have the data lineage available throughout all of our services. The complexity is just getting out of hands, and we need better solutions for data governance, and we need to spend more time and effort towards data governance. And I think it's a reoccurring pattern for many companies that I've recently talked with. So I think that is the trend. Not sure if it will be solved this year, but definitely a lot more focus around data governance will pop up.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. Who wants to go next?
I'll go.
There you go.
2023, right?
Sure.
So I reckon ROI for data projects. I think there'll be a lot more so what and why questions. So you got petabytes of data, so what? Or why do you have petabytes of data? If a stakeholder comes up saying we need data within milliseconds or seconds, why? I think those probing questions will be asked a lot more. I don't think data teams can just exist for the sake of existing. They have to, in a sense, justify their existence. They have to really show value to the product that the company is selling or marketing, and it has to really add value to the users of the company's product. So I think that's going to be big. I also think that I want to say something about ChatGPT and SQL.
Someone needs to. We're not ending the
The other thing I'll say in a more serious note, I think data modeling is coming back a little bit. I think all the cloud warehouses were quite forgiving with our mistakes. You could write anything, write any SQL, and if you just wanted to run it faster, you just scale it up. So writing good SQL, modeling data well, I think is coming back as well.
I totally agree with this data modeling. I'm into that for months since I arrived at PayU. Totally agree with that. I do want to add another topic of lineage. I would say DBT is like extremely helpful in terms of understanding exactly what was the path and what was the pipeline in terms of like where the data came from, what was the aggregation that we walk through and how we access it through the Tableau. This is our tool, but could be like any other tool for presentation. So this is number one. So I would say like modeling, and this is number one. Because I'm kind of handling with both engineering part, analytics part, and innovation part. Today we are working on some anomaly detection. So basically, anomaly has a lot of preparation in terms of the data. So exactly how to do, for example, special days in terms of anomaly, in terms of the data, how you measure special days, questions that you want to ask in terms of the product, and to bring them to the data and to the data engineers to the table. How to prepare the data, how to deal with huge scale of data. What are those unique days? Is that like traditional wise? Is that like US? Is that Jewish wise? You know, those stuff. So I would say both.
Awesome. Ryan, how about yourself?
Well, I don't know if there's a lot I can add to what everybody said here. You know, I agree with everything. I think the one that hit home the most was the modeling really did, like, because he's right. Like the data warehouses really save us when things aren't quite kind of built out quite right. But, you know, personally for us, you know, it's hard to predict, you know, what's coming up next, because it seems like with just the way our company goes and the clients that we have sign up, there's just always something new all the time, right? So, you know, for us, it's just trying to stay ahead of it and making sure that, you know, we don't get ourselves into trouble with the way that some of the queries run for our side. And, you know, security is huge, you know, I mean, you're always on top of that. I mean, these are things that I don't think are new to 2023. I just think there's just more challenges behind all of them, you know, and there's just more ways that you have to just make sure you're staying ahead of the game. You know, I think it just, the same stuff that's always been happening just continues to evolve, really, in my opinion.
And Ryan, I sorry for jumping in here. I did want to touch on something here. You mentioned we don't know what's coming next, and I agree with you. So, you know, to kind of summarize or over summarize that, I'm hearing agility is key.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you know, especially in our industry, I mean, I can speak a lot with our industry when it comes to processing, you know, and people, you know, spending money and tracking, you know, trying to figure out what's making them money. When they get sales, how does that tail look? You know, that's kind of what we work with a ton of subscription companies. So it's like, there's just ways that people are doing things and tracking things. It just never, ever ends, you know? And so you just have to continue to evolve with the people that are using your platform, really, you know? So there's just more and more data points they want to see. And you just got to make sure you're modeling it right, you're storing it right, you're being secure about it, and you're, you know, and it all, you know, it's everything. Everything comes into play.
Cool. All right. I think we're good to then move on to our next session. But firstly, thank you so much to all of our speakers here today, Erik, Keren, Ryan, Krishna. Your insights were super valuable to everyone tuning in. So I really want to thank you.